Hey guys, all right, back at you here at PAX South 2019 with the NES or NES Maker, and we have one of the developers of the software here, Joe, and he's been telling me all about the software. It sounds awesome for people who want to make video games but may not know how to code, and people who grew up with the NES and have these dreams of video games that they had as a kid to make, now, thanks to Joe, can become a reality. So Joe, tell us about the software.
Sure. So NES Maker is a software to make brand new cartridge-based real hardware playable games for the Nintendo Entertainment System without having to do any code. So behind this you're sort of seeing an interface, if you've ever looked at Game Maker or Unity or RPG Maker, comparable to that, but the idea is it's actually affecting the assembly code underneath when you make changes in the tool. And then when you export it, it actually exports in a way that you can flash to a cartridge and then put in your real Nintendo and actually play your game without having dug into the code. That said, for advanced users, if you want to get into the assembly is organized in a nice, clean way into what that part of the assembly does, and you can make edits to the code. But for newcomers, the thing that turns them off the most is they get frightened away by having to learn all the code. Now you don't have to. You can actually get started making a NES game, your dream NES game, without actually having to learn assembly.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, it looks super simple. The user interface, I mean, to people who know computers, this is really clean. Clearly you have the folders and files and then just what you drag and drop in between. And so earlier you were going over with me some of the ways that you create the pixel art. So can you explain some of that again to the
Sure, and just to put it really simple, you know, the easiest way to make pixel art for a game in NES Maker is to just use the tool. There's a built-in pixel editor. If you are a Photoshop user and you're an artist, and you're like, yeah, but I want to use Photoshop, you can use Photoshop. The problem with the NES is it's very graphically limited. So we've actually got a way to import graphics that force you into the constraints of the NES, even if you create in Photoshop or in Paint or GIMP or something like that. So we did that with a lot of things. Like, here's a way, if you use an external tool, to get that sort of resource into NES Maker. Just like for music, if you use Family Tracker to make chiptunes, our tool can import Family Tracker files. So
awesome.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, it's streamlined, so simple. And so how long have y'all been working on this?
I mean, we technically started 5 years ago when we started building our game. And then there was no tools like this, so we were doing it the long way. We were literally building an assembly. And then Austin, who's the artist in the project, would say, I don't want...
Let's get Austin in on
Come on over.
Quick. So, yeah, you wanna... Yeah, just say hi. This is Austin.
Hi, I'm Austin.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir.
Austin.
Want to get all credit where it's due. So.
Yeah, right. Austin, he's the artist, and he doesn't want to look at hex tables when he's creating art. He wants to see the image that he's trying to create. He wants to see the animation. So let's build an animation tool that spits out the assembly data, and then we're building screens, and literally screens were these giant tables of numbers that related to values, and we're like, what if you could actually just see the screen that you were building and could edit it together by clicking and putting the thing like in Mario Maker, I want this tile there. So we made a tool that did that and then spits out that data, from the graphic user interface. And we kept doing that with more and more tools until before we knew it, it's like, wow, we have NES Maker. Like that kind of came together as an accident while we were building our game.
Okay, awesome. And so in the game, you take, or in the game development, it takes everything that's scary about making an NES game and makes it super simple, polished, fun to use. Yeah, I would be addicted to this for hours. So it looks awesome. And the one thing I do want to know is, with it, is there a multiplayer function? And you, like for instance in Zelda, you can go into a dungeon and it completely changes. How is that implemented?
The short answer is
yes.
Anything that is capable to do on the Nintendo Entertainment System can be done through NES Maker. NES Maker is effectively a script organizer, and a graphic user interface for things like creating graphics and things like that.
Right.
The deterrent is, how much assembly language do you know in order to make the things happen? So we have a base engine. It is a completely malleable engine that you can change in all of its pieces, all of its components. You could download user-created assets, code assets from the asset store to do new things that you never thought of, and look at tutorials. Multiplayer, it's totally possible. We don't have that built into this module, but you could totally learn how to do a controller to read and then make it control a second object and stuff like that. Totally possible. And I'm sure, I don't think it'll even be a month before someone has a multiplayer game. People are already trying to do it, you know. And then they'll share that with the community, and then everyone will want to make a multiplayer game.
Right.
Already in here, though, are 256 screen triggers. So you can do what you were talking about, where you go into a dungeon, you defeat the boss, and it flips a trigger, and now you go back to the other area, and the princess says, "Thank you for slaying the dragon," whatever, you know. So that already exists by default. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned your community with, like if someone were to make the multiplayer, they could upload the code there. How do you keep in touch with your community? Is there a forum they can join, or how is that?
Forum is at www.nesmakers.com, nesmakers.com. And they're super supportive. The Facebook group is very, very active, which is, if you search, it's NES Makers as a group on Facebook.
Okay.
We are very adamant about it's a no troll zone down there, and really it is the most supportive community I've ever seen anywhere on Facebook.
Yeah.
So, you know, to have a group on Facebook that doesn't devolve into political arguments, you know, it's an amazing thing.
That's a nice break.
They just want to talk about building NES games, like that's all, and so it's super cool. So if you want a break from all the chaos of Facebook, come to our group.
NES Maker, it's NES Makers, right?
That's the group, yeah.
Okay.
The product is NES Maker, the forums and the group is NES Makers with an S.
Excellent, excellent. And then last thing real quick, I was blown away at how simple this is, but we may not have time for the whole process, but how do I take what I make on the software and put it onto a cartridge?
Well, do you have 30 seconds?
I think we do.
Okay, so come closer. All right, so I've made a screen. Let's make some really quick changes to the screen. See these mushrooms here? I'm gonna put a tree there instead. So I just wanna show that something new is happening. I'm gonna put a tree right there, all right? So when we compile, remember that I just put a tree in that spot. I'm gonna export and test, and this is gonna actually open it in an emulator, and you can actually choose the emulator that you wanna use. We have it set up to Mesen, M-E-S-E-N, which is a free emulator, and notice there's the tree that I just added to the screen, right? Okay, now I wanna get this to a cartridge because that's really cool, but we're not here to make computer games. We're here to make games that run on an actual Nintendo Entertainment System. So, I can get a cartridge flasher from Infinite NES Lives for about $25, and they also provide blank cartridges. All I do is I hit the Make Cart button, which is right here, and it's gonna compile just like it did in the emulator. And once it's done compiling, instead of opening the emulator, it's gonna open the cart flashing protocols. So right now, what's happening is, it's going over the USB cable. All the data from the game that we've constructed is going over the USB cable to the cart flasher, into the cartridge. And when it's done, this will disappear, and that'll let you know that this is flashed, and I'll be able to take it out and play it on actual hardware. So, it's done. I pop it out. It'll play on any NES hardware-based system, any clone, if it's as long as it's hardware-based. So if it's a NES, a Retro USB AVS, Retro Portable Duo, you know, any of these. And here are the changes that we made. There's the tree that we put in the game. So it was that easy for me to get a game from NES Maker to a cartridge playable on actual hardware.
Excellent. Yeah, so super easy. Like, that is awesome. And so how do you take it if, so if you have a game on that cartridge, you plug it into this device, and then it's gonna flash it and put the new one on.
Right.
What would happen if I put a Nintendo licensed old game from the 70s in there, and would it delete that code and replace it?
It probably would erase it, and it probably wouldn't write it. Because all the NES games are very different as far as which mappers they use. So unless you had a game that was the exact mapper and it was set up exactly the same way, it would not flash that to these cartridges. These are aftermarket mappers. This is a Mapper 30 cartridge, which means that none of those games were appropriately flashed to these because this didn't exist when those games were made. But you know, also the whole idea is we are not looking for games that we've played in nostalgia. That's great. We love Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Metroid, Castlevania, Mega Man. All these games are great. We want to see the next generation of great NES games. That's our goal. So this tool, we're really strongly pushing for what is the game that you always dreamed that you could have made as a kid? Not Mario 4 for the NES. No, your idea, your original concept, and that's what we want to see developed.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I'm really happy that y'all have made this possible for people to do that. And so it's best to say, play it safe, get the hardware that works for sure if you want to have a good time with this software, and invest the small amount of money to have thousands of hours of entertainment. So it's excellent. It's simple and simple and brings back
replayability,
replayable value. The last thing I will do here, and let you get back to all the people here at PAX, is how do we buy this?
If you're not at a wonderful event like this at PAX, you can go to the website www.thenew8bitheroes.com. I've got it right here, probably on the screen as we speak.
We'll get it in the description.
And right there, everything you need is right on that main page. How to get a license, where to download the current version of the software, and all the tutorials you need to get you started.
Fantastic, very cool. And so we have all the forums to join, we have everything here. And last, I guess, is just any plugs, anything you want to say to the public?
No. If you guys want to actually check out some of the games that the community has created, you can actually go to our forums at nesmakers.com, and in the archives there's a WIP, work in progress section, and you can play probably 50, 60 ROMs for free right now of demo or beta games in progress, like the ones that we've got behind us right now.
Gotcha. Awesome, man. Well, hold on. We'll cut. And we also heard before, the big question here is, what about Super Nintendo Maker, SNES Maker? How's that coming?
We hear the question, are you guys going to make Super Nintendo Maker? Probably once every half an hour for the last 5 years of our life. And the answer is the Super Nintendo is, from what we understand, notoriously difficult to actually develop for. That's not to say it's impossible or hard, but also there's a lot more resources for NES development. It was already reverse engineered a long time ago. The hardware patents have been expired for longer. There were smaller teams that made NES games, than Super Nintendo games. So there's a lot of reasons why Super Nintendo is a lot harder to develop for. And we spent 5 years in R&D. This software, I'm not sure whether we're ready to jump into another decade of the next software, but never say never. So
awesome. Yeah, no, it's great on the NES, and I mean so many fantastic games spawned from there. And so I grew up with the SNES, but so much respect and enjoyment from the NES. So definitely check this out. We'll have all the information down below. And Joe, thank you so much for talking with us, man. It was a blast. And thank all of you for tuning in to Broken Butter. This interview only shows a little peek into the hard work these guys have put into NES Maker. We got to stay and talk with them afterwards, and they're just some awesome people. We ended up grabbing a copy of NES Maker for ourselves, and we're definitely going to post some videos about it soon, along with a new idea we have to go with it. Please keep an eye out for more PAX South 2019 coverage from Broken Butter Media. We're going to have these videos up real soon and would love for you to check them out. And if you like this video, please consider giving it a like. If you loved it, maybe give us the beautiful gift of a new subscriber. And if you hated it, let us know in the comments down below. It's the internet after all. Who keeps their opinion to themselves here? Until next time, guys, take it easy.